let's talk about Uncharted, and I will be spoiling things in this video, but I will give you a full warning before I do spoil anything in this video. It is the 15th of May, Sunday the 15th of May, and this game came out on Tuesday the 10th of May, which is 5 days ago. And I finished it last night. I live streamed it for the past week, mostly twice a day. That's how much I was playing it, and I finished it last night. So I'm going to review this, and I'm also going to talk about the other games in the series, 1, 2, and 3. So we have the complete collection here on PS4. But first I'm going to actually give you a bit of history as far as how I got into the Uncharted games to begin with. I'd first heard about the Uncharted games I think around 2011 when the third game came out, somewhere around that time. A friend in work had told me that he was playing it, he was loving it, and I was like, what's that? Much in the same way as I do these days when people talk to me about Dead Space or Bioshock or Halo or God of War or like all these, you know, Call of Duty even. All these different franchises I have absolutely no idea about. I'm just like, don't even know what you're talking about. So I thought, okay, let's see what this Uncharted thing's all about. I went on the PS3 and downloaded a demo for the first game, Uncharted. Drake's Fortune, I believe. Is that the first one? Yeah. And I didn't like it. It looked nice and everything, looked pretty, but I liked the adventure theme. But I didn't like the fact that you couldn't auto-aim and you had to manually aim when firing at people. I'm not doing this. This doesn't seem like fun. So I deleted the demo. That was that. Flash forward by about 4 years, and Connie, my fiance, saw a trailer or some kind of gameplay video for this new game, Uncharted 4, and she thought it looked amazing. And so she wanted to play one of the older ones, because obviously the fourth one wasn't coming out for a while. And she decided that she wanted to play the third one, because she thought the first and second one would probably be shit, you know, by now, because they're old. I believe that was her thinking. And so I got her the third game for her birthday, which you can see in 24 Hour Movie Marathon 4 last year. Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception. So I got this for PS3, and I think this is the only time it's been opened. So yeah, she never played it, which was fine. I mean, I think a few months before that, for Christmas, I had gotten her Tomb Raider and the new one, and Beyond Two Souls for the PS3, and she played those religiously and loved them. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? So she never got into this one, and again it was to do with the auto-aim. She had the same kind of feeling on it. She didn't want to play a game where she had to manually aim, which was fair enough, I suppose. But I wish she'd given it a shot. But I wasn't about to start playing it either. So we both had the same issues with it, and that was that. And for this Christmas, this past Christmas just gone, I didn't know what to get Connie. She didn't know what she wanted. Again, I always go to the joke of it's like me buying her the Simpsons bowling ball with Homer written on it. You know, it's almost as good as me kind of when I get her a present for her birthday or Christmas. I get like a Blu-ray or something. Like for her birthday this year, I got her Inside Out on Blu-ray with all the special features which she was dying to see, and she was really happy with that. But it still feels a little bit like I'm handing her a steelbook with my name on it, and that's a whole other story anyway. But yeah, well, what do I get her? And then she said, well, how about the the Uncharted collection? Alright, so I got her the Uncharted collection for Christmas. She's very happy with it, but she didn't play it. So I thought, you know, I'm going to start playing this. Let's see what this is all about, and I'll stream it. I'd been getting into streaming games, and I thought, let's try and stream Uncharted 1. So I did, and I think halfway through that playthrough I got a PS4 camera as well. And so I streamed the whole game, and I really, really loved it. Once I got over the fact that you can't auto-aim and you have to manually shoot people, I absolutely loved it. And it felt challenging and satisfying when you defeated enemies without the auto-aim as well. But I started to fall in love with the characters. You know, Nathan Drake, this explorer, very much in the vein of Indiana Jones, although this is more of a kind of wisecracking, kind of cooler, modern version of an Indiana Jones in a way. Not that Indiana Jones wasn't a wisecracker, but you know, it's a different kind of character. It feels in the same family, but not quite, you know, blood relatives. And of course the whole stories are very much inspired by Indiana Jones, which were very much inspired by adventure tales of old. You know, searching after, you know, lost treasure, that kind of stuff. Going into history, real historical figures like Sir Francis Drake and all that kind of stuff. His name's Nathan Drake, and that's played into. And then the character of Victor Sullivan, or Sully, who's the older mentor to Nathan Drake, is another fantastic character who I love spending time with whenever I play the games. And then we have Elena Fisher, who is a woman who kind of comes through most of the Uncharted games and is a prominent female figure in all the games. And she's very annoying in the first one. Connie hated her in the first one, and I found her a little bit annoying. But actually, by the time you get to the fourth one, the characterization is so good that I really started to become a fan of the character. I wouldn't say I love the character of Elena, but I really appreciate her in the fourth one. And again, I'll tell you before I get to spoilers and stuff like that. So I played through this, I streamed it all at the beginning of this year, I think January or February, something like that. And then Connie started watching and she was like, oh, I want to try and play it. So she started getting into it. And she wanted to beat the game before me, and we got to a bit of a competition. And that's how she got into the games, finally. And so we both played all 3 games over the past few months. We both completed all 3. We both loved them all. And yeah, I'll give you a rundown. And that's about it, really. And then we were just looking forward to the 4th one coming out. And as far as that's concerned, I finished it, and Connie's played a few hours of it, but she's been quite busy this week, and I'm sure she's dying to get back into it. So that's the history out of the way. Now, my thoughts on the games. The first one, Uncharted Drake's Fortune. I really loved the story. The villain, who looked a bit like David Gilmour, was so-so. But I was just so blown away by the set pieces in this game. And again, this is remastered for the PS4. It looks even better than the PS3 versions of all 3 games. And so I feel kind of spoilt in that way as well. But just some of the visuals were fantastic. The gameplay, you know, scaling up cliff faces and hanging on ledges. All the kind of cool tricks you can do, the variety of weapons that you can use, going into cover, throwing grenades, that kind of stuff. The strategy involved in it, in the gunfights, is fantastic. Again, the areas, the kind of global adventure, you know, feel where you go to different countries and have different sections of the games. The fact that they're split into chapters is very nice and kind of cinematic as well. Well, not even cinematic, almost book-like in a way. Like it is a tale that you're being told, and an old book of a great adventure being brought to life in front of your very eyes. Only you're playing it, and you're in control of the not the story so much, but the you know, the vessels of the story, that the characters themselves. And you know, there are definitely bits where I kind of laugh at the game, where it's like an impossible jump that no one could make, but Nathan Drake makes it. And then I'll talk about the ending of all 3 games when I get to the spoiler section, because I want to talk about that a little bit. But overall, the first game is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, really surprised me, and by the end I was a huge fan of the series already, and I would give it a very strong 9 out of 10. And I'm no big gamer, so you know, my ratings are going to be high for all these games, and I'm not going to be very critical with them. You know, I play a few games, but you know, these ones they just blew me away. So let's just get that out of the way. You're not going to see much critical talk in this video. The second game, Uncharted 2: Among Thieves, it just seemed to jump from the first one way up there. Like, it got so much better. The fluidity of the movement of the gameplay, the fighting, you know, mechanics, the gunplay was very similar, but just the way that it's put together, the set pieces. The game literally opens with you hanging off a train that's hanging off the edge of a cliff in these mountains in the middle of nowhere, which is just like, what an opening. In the first 2 minutes, Uncharted 2 already blew the first one out of the water, and the story is really good. I love where it went. I love the backstory of you know, the place they were trying to find, the kind of lost city aspect of it, and there's other things that came into it that I'll talk about later. But overall, the second one is just phenomenal. It has an amazing sequence in the middle where you get onto the back of this train, and you basically fight your way from kind of the end of the train to the front of the train, and it takes you about half an hour, you know, if you don't die that much. Maybe quicker if you don't die at all, but it takes a long time, and this train goes through the jungle, it goes up into the mountains, and you go from kind of a tropical sunny climate to a snowy wintry one, and you're going across these mountain railroads that look down on a sheer drop, and I'm trying to look at how gorgeous it all looks without dying at the same time, and it was amazing. Probably the most action-packed and satisfying action sequence in the game I've probably ever played. It was just phenomenal. What else is there in the second game? There's just, you know, it felt like a step up in terms of the story as well. And when you're walking around and people and characters are talking, interacting, I like that stuff. But yeah, Uncharted 2, 10 out of 10. It really, really is. There's some great scenes is it in India, I think, where you're going through these like this broken city, like all the buildings are broken down. You're climbing through roofs that have caved in and stuff, and scaling this hotel, and like it just looks amazing, and like I love that whole section of the game as well. The third game, Uncharted, Drake's Deception, Uncharted 3. Oh, and the villain in the second game, some Russian brute called Lazarevich, I think. Quite kind of stock, really, just generic, big Russian, I'm going to kill you. And there's another character in there as well, this British guy who's kind of interesting. I like the kind of dynamics of, you know, where does his allegiances lie, and then Chloe as well, another female character. She was okay. The third game, brilliant. Like it takes it up again. Not as much. There isn't as big of a leap from 1 to 2. In 2 to 3. 2 and 3 feel very much like companion pieces, whereas the first one feels like the original. 2 and 3 feel like the sequel, if that makes sense. There isn't a huge jump in quality from the second to the third game. They're both kind of on par in a lot of ways. They feel very cinematic, much more than the first one. There's a great opening in 3. You get to play as a young Nathan Drake. There's a great opening scene in London, and then that continues in London as well. Again, a global sense. You go into London. Where else? What other locations are in there in 3? Like a big desert location. I can't remember which country it's in. You know, it's just really fun, and lots of, you know, great character moments. There's a couple of new characters in there. Cutter, a British guy. Chloe comes back for this one. Sully is there as always, and again, through all 3 of these games, the voice acting is incredible and so fun and believable. Just great acting, you know. It really sells everything, both the humor of the situations and the severity of them when shit goes down, which it often does. The villains in the third one, again, there's a female villain, and she's okay, better than the other guy who is a male villain, and he blends in with all the other enemies in the game. Just British, dark hair, black suit. That's it. Like, he didn't really stand out beyond the fact that he had lines in the game. Really, I mean, the guy did a good job, I guess, but it just, as a character, it really didn't stand out much as a villain. I mean, he worked well, but it just didn't really reach that. It didn't push past just working as a serviceable villain. And I still don't think in all 3 of these games we really had that. An amazing villain, you know, who had a great, like, you know, backstory and everything like that, and motivations. But I still can't let that take things away from it, because 3 was such a fun ride. There's an incredible sequence on a plane, and you can see Harrison Ford playing that in a great piece of marketing genius, in fact, where they had Harrison Ford sit down and play Uncharted 3, and he's just like, it's like a typical granddad playing a game, but he's just like wowed by it, and you can tell how much it really is blowing him away, and he's like, you know, wow, it's so cinematic, you know, the action just keeps on coming, and he's laughing and enjoying it, and he's like, wow, this is great. And there's actually a great video where they deleted the gameplay of Uncharted 3 and put all clips from Indiana Jones films, and they kind of cropped out him holding the PS3 controller, and the title of the video is Harrison Ford watches Indiana Jones for the first time, and he's like, oh no, oh wow, it's so cinematic, the action just keeps on coming, so it's really, really funny. Anyway, the third game, I gotta give it a 10 out of 10. I mean, it was just so enjoyable. It looks amazing. It feels so unbelievable to be, you know, traversing through all these amazing locations. This big shipyard, this thing set on a cruise ship where the cruise ship starts sinking. You go, I mean, it's just the level of ingenuity and imagination that goes into the designs of the levels and the maps and everything, whatever you want to call it, in these games, is phenomenal. And there's just so much of it in this third one that just goes so big and so satisfying, and there's so much inventive things in the third one, like really kind of like, there's a part where you kind of get poisoned and you go through this weird kind of trippy sequence. It's really what's the word I'm trying to think, not artistic, I suppose it is artistic, but it pushed the boundary of being out there a bit more than the first 2 games in that sense. It really it was, again, cinematic, I suppose. So the third one gets another 10 out of 10 for me. I think the second one is better, but I think I prefer the third one. But they're both great. They're both right on par with each other. They really are. So that's my thoughts, without spoilers, on the first 3 games. Now my thoughts on number 4. After about 2 hours of this, I said this is like an 11 out of 10. If they keep up the quality of this, it's going to be incredible. Now I know some people who haven't loved every second of this, and if they're watching this, they know who they are. But it's got a universal acclaim, and I can see why. And I've read some of the criticisms, and I can totally get on board with those as to how that would affect some people. But it is all subjective. It's almost a perfect game. You know, there is no such thing as a perfect game. There's no such thing as a perfect song, a perfect film. You know, I don't believe in anything being absolutely perfect, really, when it comes to art, because it's also subjective, right? But it's as close to perfect as you can get, I think. For my tastes and sensibilities, it was exactly what I was hoping it would be. As Uncharted 2 was to Uncharted 1, a big jump up, this was to 3 a big jump up. This is the next generation of consoles, which is now the current gen and is soon to be the previous gen, but it just blew everything out of the water. Story, gameplay, you know, again, the smooth fluidity of the actions. In the third game, the fighting mechanisms got kind of revamped as well in terms of blocking people and stuff and using the environment. That was incredible. That's another thing I love about the third game. That carries over into this one. You know, the gun stuff and the fighting hand-to-hand combat hasn't really changed much at all. There's a few new bits of system in there, but for the most part it hasn't really changed. You can now jump and throw a rope and use a rope a lot to do all sorts of things in the game, whether it's swinging from treetops or whether it's pulling things with a rope. There are vehicles in the game that you can use a lot more than you could in the previous games, like a jeep and a boat. There's more of a sense of exploration and open world feel. Not hugely open world, but there's some of it. There's a great sequence in Madagascar where you can drive around for miles. It's unbelievable. And again, a sequence in this kind of like desert island area where you're on a boat and you can go around and explore. It's awesome. And it gives you more of a feeling of control. There are moments where you have multiple choice answers to conversations, and so it gives that kind of sense of replay value. Not like as in the whole game will be different, but you can make different choices along the way in terms of the dialogue and some of the places you can go. Whether you go to all these nooks and crannies that they've hidden across the game. I went down into this well out there in the kind of Madagascar plains, and as I was streaming this game, someone said that they hadn't even gone there before. It was just one of those things that's not vital to the story, but you can go there if you want, and there's a little puzzle there kind of as to how you can get to a hidden piece of treasure. The locations in the game are phenomenal. I mean, again, the globe-trotting feel. You know, you go from America to Scotland to Africa, you know, and it's just... I love how this game looked. You know, the lighting is phenomenal. The production design is off the charts. The music was incredible, scored by Henry Jackman. The music added so much to the emotion, and I feel like the past 3 games really just served as a nice starting point. Well, not starting point, that's not the right word to use. It served as a good foundation for which to execute all the emotional power of this game. You know, you got to know the characters in the first 3 games. There's a few emotional moments in there, not many, but this one you really delve into them. We're introduced to Nathan Drake's brother Sam, and I kind of thought, is that going to feel a bit tacked on? You know, oh, let's add in another character, you know, a long lost brother. But man, does it work. And I got to also talk about the guy who voices Nathan Drake, Nolan North. He's a great voice actor. I love his British take on Penguin in the Arkham games, but his portrayal as Nathan Drake, which is his own voice, if you see an interview with him, he just sounds and acts like Drake. It's ridiculous. He is so incredible because he's great in the emotional scenes, and he's almost even better in the funny scenes where he's being flippant and humorous and sarcastic and wise-assy. You know, he just is phenomenal and has brought this amazing character to life. Nathan Drake is definitely one of my favourite characters of all time now. And again, it's just one of those things. I only started playing these games a few months ago, and now I'm so in love with everything about them. And, you know, I just love the character. And I'm talking about films, you know, TV, anything. One of my favourite characters of all time, right here, Nathan Drake. And that goes hand in hand with Sully as well. I forget the guy's name who voices him, but he is another phenomenal character. Would have liked a little bit more of him in this game, perhaps, but he definitely plays a big part, and I'm glad of that as well. I loved it the first time we see him in the game. It was a very cool kind of intro, very Sully-esque. No, he wasn't in it more than... yeah, he wasn't in it quite a bit, actually. Now I'm thinking about it. I remember the whole section that he's actually in as well. Elena in the game. You know, I think the voice actress does a very good job of making her believable. And I liked her character a lot more in this game. And mainly it was her relationship with Drake that was explored. And I found that to be a very good emotional hook in the film. In the film? I say a film because it feels like a film. This feels like the natural evolution, well, not natural evolution, but a evolution, one evolution of video games, you know. and that's the thing. I feel like you can get a lot of things out of games. You can play games where you sit down and you just literally you build farms, or you build cities and you run them and you manage them. There's a game where you just kind of check people's immigration papers. They're called Papers, Please, isn't there? There's a game for almost anything now. Candy Crush, you know, just a puzzle game. But there are games like this that combine so many different elements in terms of a story, in terms of action, you know, gameplay, exploration, adventure, gameplay, puzzling, you know, puzzle gameplay, and everything that goes along with it. There's such a great mix of things, and there's a lot of story in this. A lot of story. There's a lot of cutscenes. I think like at least over 6 hours of cutscenes, something like ridiculous like that. I'm not sure. Because I've seen someone on YouTube post the full Uncharted 4 movie cutscene cut, which is like 6 hours long. That might be including other bits of dialogue in the game that you hear as you're playing through it, I'm not sure. And that's the other thing, you get the cutscenes where the characters talk and get the story across, and you have just you driving around in a Jeep through Africa and the people are talking in the back of the Jeep, and you kind of hear and more of the story gets revealed as it goes along, these little bits that kind of paint the entire picture. As you go along the game, you find these little notes from people, and you can read into it. And I did a lot of that, and got this, you know, towards the end of the game, where we find out about these other characters, and we get all these notes, and we see the dates, and the dates get like, you know, later and later, and it's like, wow, you can see what's happened in this place, you know, that is a big mystery. It's starting to become unraveled if you stop and read all the notes and stuff. You don't have to do that. That's your choice, and I love that. And then you know, Sam Drake, you know, the brother character was phenomenal. I thought I really enjoyed him. He worked well. It was definitely a character I thought it could have gone wrong in a lot of ways, but it really went right. Played by Troy Baker, who's a phenomenal voice actor. Has done a lot of work in the Arkham games. I mean, you look at his kind of not his filmography, but his workography. He has done so many voices and so many things, from animation to anime, films, all sorts of stuff, live action. Probably I'd say his biggest role in games is probably as Joel in The Last of Us. I believe Nolan North, who voices Nathan Drake, did a part in The Last of Us too. But Troy Baker just absolutely killed it. He really, really did. He was great as Sam Drake. And then we have the kind of villains, Nadine and Rafe. I really like Nadine. They didn't try to kind of give her too much depth. You know, they didn't try and overload her character. She was just, you know, we knew what she was about. We got little bits here and there that kind of explained who she was and who she was about. And she was just a tough, badass, you know, bitch, basically. She was just like, and I loved the fact that when we had the fight between Nate and Nadine, in fact, there's two fights between Nate and Nadine, and, you know, we see Nate punching a woman. And I thought that was great. And before the alarm bells start ringing, I thought that was great because, you know, she is beating the shit out of him, and so he hits back, and it's an action game, you know. And I'm glad they didn't go to kind of politically correct with it and shied away from it and stuff like that. And I kind of think back to wrestling in that way, where back in the Attitude Era of the WWF, you know, you would have women wrestling men, and you know, and hitting each other and slamming each other, and it was all equal, you know. And that's what I love. But now in WWE you can't do it because it's not politically correct to see a man, you know, hitting a woman in any way, even though that it's entertainment, which is what this is. You know, that's what I'm saying. I'm not making light of you know, domestic abuse by any means, but I'm just saying I appreciated that fact they went with that, because, you know, Nadine took it and then she gave it back, and she was a great, strong female character, and I liked her in the game. I really liked her character. Didn't love her, but, you know, she was a very good character. Then we have Rafe, who's kind of in cohorts with Nadine, and he has a really good backstory. The guy who performed him was great. I loved the mannerisms of him, the accent. He felt like right out of an 80s movie. I don't know why, but I really enjoyed his character, and by the end, I loved his motivations. You know, he's a guy who is very privileged and was trying to make a name for himself outside of the money that he was born into, and I loved that motivation. And for me, I think that makes him the best villain. Was he an amazing villain? No, but I think he's probably the best of the series. And then there's another villain as well who's introduced, who I thought his motivations were fantastic as well, and I'll get into more spoiler talk in a minute. I know this video is long. And again, if you want to see me play any of these games, it's all up on my channel. All the parts of this game aren't up yet, but they will be going up periodically over the next few days. Again, I don't know how much you want to kind of sit through those. I feel like the live playthroughs are more of a thing that you need to kind of be there live for, to comment along with and everything. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But the story I absolutely loved, and the way that it unfolded and unfurled and unraveled, and the pieces came together. There are probably pacing issues that I think some people have with it, and I can understand that. And maybe if I started replaying this game over and over again, I think I would find issues with that pace. But I love the story, and because it was the last game, they said this is the last time they're doing an Uncharted game. Naughty Dog, who developed these games and created them, and they also did The Last of Us, an amazing game company. I knew it was the last game, and it was really sad. And so I was trying to soak up everything, and there wasn't a moment where I felt like it was dragging because I was trying to enjoy everything. Maybe that factored into it, why it wasn't a problem for me, that there was so much story at the beginning and not a lot of action in terms of you playing it. There's a lot of kind of drama that goes on, and the way the characters interact with each other and the things that come out and all this kind of thing. There's a couple of good twists in there that I wasn't expecting at all, and they were twists that weren't in the traditional sense what I thought was probably going to be happening. I had my own preconceived ideas of where they were going to take this game, A Thief's End, and how they could play with that, how that would work into it, and it took me all by surprise. It really did. But yeah, the gameplay is phenomenal. It's probably the best looking game I've ever played. Probably. I need to go back and play The Last of Us, but I mean, it's stunning. And again, voice acting all top notch. I don't have any complaints. It is a 10 out of 10, an instant classic, a masterpiece, and one of those things that kind of proves Roger Ebert wrong. Video games can't be an art form. Play this and tell me, that it isn't. Obviously, I'm not saying that directly to Roger Ebert. I'm not that stupid, but to anyone who denies the importance of this. And I was listening to a podcast, the Nerdist podcast with Jodie Foster. She was a guest on the show this week, and she was saying how she kind of thinks that video games are almost the most artistic form of entertainment going on right now. And so, she's someone who has been through the entertainment industry for, 50, her whole life. She said from the age of 3, it's all she's known. This is someone who has acted from a very young age and appeared in films like Taxi Driver, all the way through to the 80s and the 90s, winning an Oscar for Silence of the Lambs. Now she's making her own films. She's seen it all. And, people like that sometimes, they kind of stick in their ways. But she said it. She said video games are amazing right now. And that was a really cool thing to hear. And I think more people probably need to acknowledge that. But, I don't think it's a major problem, because video games, aren't they the most lucrative form of entertainment? I mean, I'm sure I read that GTA 5 made more money than any film has ever made, something like that. I don't know, but there's no shortage of gaming fans out there who appreciate this kind of stuff. But I'm just saying, it's definitely valuable as art to me. And there were lots of moments in this game where I would say things before Drake would say them, like something would happen, I'd go, "Oh shit," and he'd go, "Ah shit," or like, "Oh, I don't believe it," And that was so weird. I was like, holy shit, he just said what I was thinking. And I didn't plan any of that. And it was so great because it made it feel more realistic and relatable. Because I'm reacting to this situation and he reacts the exact same way. And you feel like you're him, almost, And that was just such a genius touch. I don't know if it was intentional or not, or just great realistic writing. And kind of writing it as how would a normal person react to this, not, let's make it a snazzy line. No, let's say, oh shit, or whatever. That was something that just blew me away about the game, and I've never had that. And again, the music, I think I've talked about everything now. It's just a phenomenal game. You need to check this out if you haven't. And now we get into spoiler talk. Whew. Very briefly, I was surprised at the end of the first game when we had these weird kind of golem creatures on steroids who turned up, these kind of zombie creatures. And obviously the point of it was that this thing that they had unearthed was making these things come back to life, the undead almost. And I really wasn't expecting it, because the whole game was very much just like action adventure, searching for lost treasure and killing mercenaries along the way. And that's definitely something you can criticize about the games, is that Nathan Drake has murdered thousands of people in these games. But it's a game. You gotta let it slide, I think. It's par for the course. And I was kind of disappointed that it went supernatural at the end, because I thought, I would have preferred it if it was a bit more realistic. The second game, we had more supernatural, these big blue beasts, and I was like, oh god, again. But then it turned out that it was men inside suits, and they'd been kind of possessed, and I thought, okay, that's not as bad. And then we had these big blue avatar-like creatures, and I was like, ugh. But I still went along with it, and it's, it's larger than life anyway. And then the third game, what did we have at the end of the third game, actually? I don't think there was anything, was there? Yeah, oh yeah, there's these kind of fire demon thingies. They were alright, I guess. It wasn't as over the top, I guess. And I loved the tease in the third one of Sully dying. I really bought that, and I was like, oh shit. Yeah, you know, that's pretty much it I can think about in terms of spoiling things. You know, I enjoyed the supernatural elements of it because it was it fit the story and kind of the mythical quality of the stories. But part of me wished that it didn't have those bits in it because the rest of it feels so realistic and genuine. Now we head over to spoilers for the fourth game, and right out of the bat I will say there is no supernatural element in this game whatsoever, and that's almost a big plus, you know. And I don't really take it away from those games, but I love that there was no supernatural element to this. It felt like it could have happened. Again, larger than life and everything, this island with this massive city and everything, but there was no supernatural element. I love that. Now spoilers. What can I say? I love the parts where you play as the young Sam and Nate. I know CP didn't really enjoy those, but I loved the story of that and getting to delve into their history more. And then we have the whole plot of Sam, Nate's brother, being in prison for 15 years. I mean, at the beginning of the game, when you play the prison breakout from 15 years earlier, you go all over the place. You play young Nate, you play youngish Nate, and you play older Nate, and then we see really old Nate at the end. But I thought Sam died at the beginning, and I was like, holy shit, it really got me. I was like, fuck, you know. And I wasn't sure where they were going to go with it. And at that point, when we see Sam get shot and fall off the building near the beginning, I didn't know that it was Sam on the boat at the very beginning of the game, when we opened with the big dramatic opening at sea. I wasn't sure if that was him. You know, I hadn't seen any of the trailers. I avoided them, so I was like, was that Sam? I don't know. And then he turns up later, and I was kind of like, oh, you know, and it was kind of cool. I kind of bought into it. I don't think anyone else did. So that was great. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And then we find out later on that Sam's whole story that he told Nate, breaking out of the prison riot, and this Victor, is it Victor? No, it wasn't Victor. The drug lord, I forget the guy's name, who helped Sam break out of prison, but, you know, threatened his life if he didn't find this treasure, this pirate treasure from the legendary pirate Henry Avery. So Sam has got 3 months to find this treasure, or he's dead. And that's what brings Nate back into it. Nate, you know, after the third game, he's been on these huge adventures. He settles down, gets married to Elena. They have, you know, a nice home life and stuff, you know. And I love that moment where we see them playing. We play them playing Crash Bandicoot on the TV. That was such a funny moment. Even the moment when you're in Nate's loft with all his old belongings, we get to kind of go through a visual history of the 3 games and all the stuff he's picked up and the pictures and stuff, and again, people found that slow, but I loved it, and I was soaking in all the details. And then, you know, he's kind of missing his old life, and he pulls out a toy gun, and he's like, right, then the dramatic music picks up, and he's shooting off these toy guns, and it was just like, it was so funny, you know. I really got a kick out of that. And so he's settled down, Nate, you know, and he's got a safe job. He kind of still yearns for adventure, but whatever. And Sam brings him back into it and says, you know, you need to help me to save my life, basically. And then we find out, like 60-70% of the game, from Rafe, that Rafe bought Sam out of prison. There was no drug lord. Well, there was, but he died 6 months earlier, or whatever, he's dead, and the whole thing never happened. So the first time in the Uncharted series, we played through, because we played Sam during the prison break, we played a piece of fiction that never happened. That was interesting to me, because purely because I'd played it and seen the cutscenes with this drug lord who was, you know, who wanted the treasure and wanted Sam to help him find it, which I loved. I thought he was going to be the great villain and would come in at the end. And because I played through that, I never questioned that it was real. And we find out that it was completely false, and that Sam had been out of prison for 2 years, and he was trying to help Rafe to find this treasure, and it's a big betrayal to Nate. And man, just the story implications were so, like, holy shit. Like, it's not a big dun dun dun, someone died or whatever, or someone's come back to life. It was, wow, his brother lied to him about everything, and that changes everything. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant storytelling. Finding the lost city and stuff, the whole stuff on the island was amazing. Just when Nate first wakes up and he's marooned, the chapter marooned, and you're moving him around, but he's kind of slipping on the mud. It's like it feels so. You can feel the struggle through the controller, you know, and then he has to try and find his way around the island, and we see that big, awesome looking kind of weird shaped mountain. And over the course of the next like 6, 7, 8 hours, we actually go all the way around it. So by the time we get to the end, we see it from the other side. I love that part of it, going across this whole island and going to all the different places and stuff, and you know, having moments with all the characters. You know, you have Nate off with just Sully, you have Nate, Sully, and Sam, you have just Nate and Sam, you have Nate and Elena, you have Nate, Elena, Sully, and Sam. You have all the combinations you could ever want out of this game in terms of going around with characters and playing as them. You have moments where you just Nate alone. Again, the exploration part of it was great. I love just exploring and climbing up cliff faces for like an hour. You know, I'm all about that. It's just everything about it speaks to me. The story, I could sit and watch it for hours. I could climb up cliff faces for hours. I could play the gunfights for hours. I could do the puzzles for hours. Well, maybe not the puzzles. I love the puzzles. They were kind of challenging, but not like really hard. And so they were really good. I thought they didn't slow the game down too much, like maybe some of the other ones did in the first 3 games. Not much, but a little, perhaps. And then the ending. Who's going to die? I had a feeling like, you know, Courage, my boy, said that Sully or Nate was going to die. You know, a thief's end. They're both thieves. But the more that I saw, you know, it kind of progressed with Nate and Elena and their story of kind of splitting apart and him lying to her, and then her coming back for him, and kind of the, you know, what's their future going to be after this if they get out of it alive, and that moment where they're driving in the Jeep and all the sound comes way down in the mix and we just get that beautiful piece of score. I thought, oh my god, it feels like the end. It feels like one of them's going to bite the dust. But then I just started to feel like maybe the thief's end is Sam. You know, he's had a different life than Nate, and he was, you know, Nate's older brother, and perhaps he would be the one to, and he's the one who's almost more obsessed about it than Nate is, about this, finding this huge hoard of pirate treasure, like the biggest, and that's the thing, it feels like the biggest discovery ever that they've ever done. I like how they joke though that Nate is kind of like, well, you know, I've found a few lost cities before myself, you know, and they kind of make light of it, but it feels like the big one. It feels like the end. There's great set pieces like the clock tower, the chase through Madagascar, the streets and stuff, and the, you know, on the back of the car. It's just phenomenal. I just loved everything about it. I really did. And the ending, right? The ending on the pirate ship with all the gold, and you have a sword fight with Rafe, and it is just so fun. I just loved it so much. And Sam is crushed under this beam, and you know, Rafe gets killed. And I thought, well, maybe that's the thief's end, you know, because he's a thief too. Well, I suppose he had designs to be a thief. He wasn't much of a thief as compared to the Drake brothers or Sully, I suppose. And at this point, Sully was safe, Elena was safe, and I thought, right, I just can't see Nate dying at this point, but I could see Sam biting the dust. And it really felt like he was going to. They teased it, but Nate refused to give in. He saved Sam, everyone got out alive, and lived happily ever after. That was a twist to me. Like, I wasn't expecting it. I really, really wasn't. And I'm so glad I didn't get spoiled. Because I was like, wow, that's it. They all live happily ever after. You know, Sam goes off with Sully. They have their kind of middle-aged adventures together. And Nate and Elena settle down to go and do archaeology and excavating and stuff like that. And deep-sea diving. And kind of, you know, seek the adventure that they both have always wanted within them, but without the danger. And it was such a sweet ending. And then we get that great moment where, you know, Nate and Elena, they've kind of reconciled, I suppose, the kind of conflict they had earlier on, and they're sitting down together, and the camera pans up, the music plays, and they joke about having another round at Crash Bandicoot, you know, and it fades out, and I thought, wow, great ending. And then we open on the TV screen, and it's Crash Bandicoot. Okay, so we're playing, you know, the rematch, and I thought maybe the credits would start rolling as you're playing. So I played through the level, and I thought, hang on, I'm not hearing anyone talk here. I'm not hearing Nate and Elena bouncing off each other. And then I finished the level, and then the camera just slowly pans away from the TV, and we see this guitar, we see this very childlike room, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And we see a dog, and we see a young teenage girl playing the game. And I thought, holy shit, it's their daughter. And you get to play it. It's the epilogue of the game. You walk around as Cassie Drake, or Morgan, depending on how they actually dealt with that. The fact that Nate's real name's Morgan, I don't know. Is Elena technically Elena Drake or Elena Morgan? I don't know. Maybe she kept the real name. Either way, Cassie, the daughter of Nathan Drake and Elena Fisher, walking around. I think it's Elena Fisher. I don't know. Maybe I just came up with that in my head. I don't know. She's walking around, or you're walking around with her. You can feed the dog treats. It's a very slow ending where you can just kind of enjoy the details, soak it up one last time, play a record, look through the photo album and see, the wedding pictures, the baby pictures, Sully holding up Cassie when she was a baby. I mean, it brought a tear to my eye, it really did. It didn't roll, so I didn't cry, but it got me. It was so sweet and so emotionally satisfying to see these characters you love get that perfect ending, and some people might criticize it for that, for tying it all up in a neat little package, but man, it was so satisfying to me, and I am a sucker for a happy ending. I love endings which are not so happy and end on a more ambiguous note. See Last of Us. But I think this was the right kind of game, the right kind of story to end the way it did. I mean, you can read a note on the table that shows that Sam and Sully are still going strong together as a team, and they have been for 15, 14 years probably at that point. Cassie looks to be fairly into her teen years. And that's really great, just to know that they had a good ending as well. And then you go over to the house that they live in this tropical paradise. You get to see all the pictures on the wall that tells the story of what Nate and Elena have been up to. They've been a success in their life after all this Uncharted stuff. And then Cassie finally gets the keys that apparently she's been looking for, and she opens the closet that has all of Nate's Uncharted escapades stuff inside it, and she finds the book, the journal that his mother kept about Henry Avery. So it takes it all the way back to the 2 generations back, and that's when Nate and Elena walk in. I'm just explaining it now, but I mean, we see them. They look quite kind of old, not really old. They didn't overdo it. Nate looks, he's got some grey in his hair and stuff, and still very much like himself, the same as Elena. And Cassie, I thought was great. I mean, just in those 10 minutes that we see Cassie, I thought that she was great. And felt very much like their kid, if that makes sense. And Nate decides, right, it's time. Well, he didn't decide to. He's kind of forced into it. He's finally going to tell Cassie about all the adventures he had, and he starts with El Dorado, the first story, and they walk off onto the beach together, and the game ends. And it's just like, it's amazing. It's so perfect, almost too perfect, and maybe too sickly sweet for some people, perhaps. It left me feeling empty but full at the same time, and it was so sad that I'd finished streaming them as well, because I really enjoyed playing this with other people watching, and everyone who kind of tuned in for all 4 of these games, I should say, while I was streaming them, and commented along and kind of hung out with me while I was playing these, and had fun and joked and asked questions, all that good stuff. I mean, there's so many people who joined the streams when I played these games, but particular Prodigon, Matt, David, loads of people. Again, I don't want to feel like I'm missing anyone out, but anyone who kind of stopped in on those streams, who left genuine comments, obviously, I just appreciate it. It was really cool to hang out with you guys. CP for some of it as well. I'm trying to think if there's people I've forgotten. There probably is, and so apologies if if I didn't say a name. But there's a lot of people who tuned in, and I appreciate that, and it was a lot of fun. And it's sad to know I'll never do that again, really, because why would I stream these games again? I've already done them, Apparently there's single player DLC coming for this, there's co-op coming for this. I don't know how substantial it's going to be, but I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, that's about it. That's all I have to say. This is a masterpiece, and I've decided now I can't differentiate between the two. This and The Last of Us are tied for my favourite game of all time. And I'm someone who very much doesn't like to kind of call a new thing my favourite thing of all time. I kind of like to stick with my nostalgic choices. But I mean, you go back to the classics of my generation, Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda, Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario 64, all these amazing games, GTA 3. It's the best. This and The Last of Us are tied as both my favourite game of all time and the 2 best games I've ever played. And they're both similar in terms of some of the gameplay elements, some of the visuals, the way the story is told, the way that you play it, but they're both very different. They're both very similar but very different, and they both have endings that left me feeling emotionally stirred in a way that I've never felt after playing a game, but I felt differently stirred in both cases. And it was both a sense of bittersweet, but a different flavour of bittersweetness. So I have to take my hat off to Naughty Dog, not that I have a hat on, but they have created, in the past, when did Last of Us come out? 2013. The past 3 years, well, I suppose they were working on Last of Us for years, but within the space of 3 years, they have released the 2 best games I have ever played. And there's probably people in the comments can be like, oh, you haven't played this, you haven't played that. That's true. But, the best game that I have ever played so far, It's just phenomenal. I can't wait to play it again. I can't wait to... I'm going to go for platinum on this. I want to get all the trophies, I care about this game so much and the characters, and I got so invested in them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not much more I can talk about, and I've already talked about it enough in the streams I did of this, so I wasn't even going to make this video, but to sum up my kind of whole history with these games and my thoughts on all of them and the spoilers and everything else in between, Uncharted, it's been a hell of a ride, and it's sad that it's over. Do I think there should be more games? Is there a possibility to see a game with kind of Cassie Drake, with maybe Nate playing a Sully role, or perhaps seeing the escapades of Sam and Victor Sully? I don't know. Those could happen, those could work, but I almost wish, it's kind of like that kind of tough decisions you have to make sometimes. I kind of wish that that's it and they never touch it again. I really, really do. Because you can't top that. You really can't. But at the same time, if they want to do it, then they should do it. But Naughty Dog have said that they're not doing it again. So will another developer pick it up? I don't know. I kind of feel like they shouldn't, because I wouldn't like to see an Uncharted game that hasn't been made by these people. I think it's a fitting end, and all good things must come to an end. And the best things are usually when the people who make them, in terms of entertainment, they kind of get out while the going's good. Look at Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad could still be going on right now 3 years after it ended, and it could probably still be a very good show, but they got out while it was at its peak, and this is at its peak. They shouldn't touch it again. They probably will, I mean, maybe not in what's the word? Not in recent history, maybe not in the foreseeable future, in the near future, but maybe 10, 15 years down the line. But for me, this series is perfect. Well, almost perfect. I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's almost perfect. And yeah, these are games I will play over and over again for the rest of my life. And I'm so glad that I got into them this year. And that's all I got to say. So, thank you for watching. Let me know all your thoughts down below. And yeah, that's it. Again, this feels sad as well. I was sad on my stream. I couldn't end it after the credits. I started playing around with some of the render modes you get when you unlock the bonuses at the end of the game. I was playing around with them and kind of still chatting, and it was terrible, because I should have just ended it at the end of the credits in my stream, but I didn't want to say goodbye to the people in the stream or the game itself. And now this feels like the final note as well. But we still got the DLC to come, I suppose, and there's multiplayer that I'll play and probably stream some of that at some point. But yeah, it's definitely bittersweet. It definitely is, and I just can't believe that the game's got to me that much. That I love the characters in such a short period of time, a couple of months. I'm a huge fan of the series now, and that's all I got to say about that. So thank you for watching.
So you might say he's a really nice guy, really, but if fucking don't cut shit with me. He says he's really cool, but I think he's a tool.